hopefully this will help a little bit. So, Laura, can you just turn the sound up for me? To drone or not to drone, that is the question. I'm asked all the time, should I buy a drone? What drone should I get? Should I build it? Should I buy it? And there's lots of issues around that. And we have an English saying, a dog is not for Christmas, it's for life, and drones are the same. It's not for Christmas, it's for life. So, I'm going to play a short video, and unfortunately for the people that know me already, they get a bit bored with this, but I start nearly all my presentations with this, because it has such immense meaning in everything we do, especially with regards to technology. So I'm hoping the sound is going to work. If not, we'll start again. Let's give it a go. Hang on. We have no sound, as always. Yeah. Oh, we've gone past. I love technology when it doesn't work.
Plug it in, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
As that you cannot intimidate human beings into productivity.
So, let's just start again.
We are entering a whole new era, the decade of positive change. Around the world, organizations have realized that you cannot intimidate human beings into productivity. The key is to let people do what they do best, whatever way works best for them. At the same time, fundamental principles of mass production give ordinary people access to powerful technology. That which was affordable to the few becomes available to the many. Mass production becomes mass productivity. The Industrial Revolution meets the age of enlightenment. The walls have come down. Opportunity has gone up. And your only limits will be the size of your ideas and the degree of your dedication. People, this is an exciting time to be alive.
The words in that, I believe, really mean something. You know, especially the last sentence, you know, it's an exciting time to be alive. And the sentence before that, you know, the only limits are the degrees of your imagination and dedication, or words to that effect. Out of interest, and again, I don't wish to embarrass anybody, but who was born after 1991? And that advert was made before you were born. Yeah. That was an old Apple advert when they launched what some people may, if you're an Apple person, remember as known as the pizza box, the LC, the little flat one, and one of the the Macs at the same time. So it's been around a long time, that advert. So the basic rules of flying a drone. Every country in Europe is different and the same. At the moment, there is no coordination between virtually any of the countries. The European Aviation Authority, EASA, are desperately trying to create a set of European rules, but their first attempt, which came out as a consultation document a few weeks ago, has been basically, more to the point, it's horrified the whole industry, and if anything, it almost destroys the industry from a commercial point of view. So that's been thrown back to them by virtually all of the commercial operations, and we'll have to see what happens. From my point of view, heaven only knows what's going to happen, whether Brexit happens or not. I'm not going to get into the debates of Brexit here, but you know, we just don't know whether, even if Brexit, assuming that Brexit happens, whether it will affect or how it would affect aviation rules, not just for us as drone operators, but in the general aviation industry. Because, just as a side note, even in the UK now, if you're a private pilot, all of your licenses are administered by the European aviation industry, no longer the Civil Aviation Authority. So, you know, there's a lot to untwine and untangle there, assuming it happens. So, Spain, just as a specific example of the industry and the regulation, when our industry started in the form that it is now, about 4 years ago, or thereabouts, maybe a little bit longer, there was virtually no rules, and everyone who was flying then flew anywhere and everywhere and just did what they wanted to. And then, you know, people started getting fed up with seeing these things buzzing over their heads and in parks, and various aviation authorities around Europe and the world started implementing a series of rules. Interesting enough, in Spain, after a little while, they went full swing and banned everything. And there was a period of time in Spain where even if you had a little tiny play one, technically speaking, it was illegal to fly that outdoors. Completely impractical, completely unpoliceable, and to be frank, most people ignored the rules anyway in Spain. Even the you know, operators that came into Spain to do jobs just sort of flew and did their own thing. And then must have been about a year ago now, Alex, somewhere around there, they changed, somewhere about a year ago now, the Spanish Aviation Authority realised that, you know, it was unpractical. And then they brought in a set of rules that basically are similar to everybody else's. And that is, very simply, can you see it? If you can't see it, you're flying it illegally. And this is the same for, in principle, commercial operators as well as hobbyists. And what we say is that distance that you shouldn't go beyond is roughly 500 metres. Now, if you fly a machine that size, you'll most probably see that at 500 metres with the lights on it. If you're flying a small, has everyone seen these little white ones from DJI, the Phantom, that sort of thing? The probability is you've got no chance of seeing that at 500 metres. People do because they've got a little camera on and you can see it on your iPad, but ultimately it's breaking the rules. The second thing is on height. You shouldn't go above 120 metres, or in aviation terms, 400 feet. There's actually a really practical reason for this, and this has been around since many, many years, since model hobby flying that people used to do with their grandfathers nearly 50 years ago. It was the same rule. And the reason that rule exists is because of general aviation. In the flying world, except for landings, emergencies, and taking off, you should never go fly below 500 feet without special permission. And if you have special permission, then you tell everybody, or the aviation authority will tell everybody that you have special permission in the form of what's called a NOTAM. So before you fly, you know that you're flying in an area where they're below 500 feet. So therefore, by hobbyists and drone operators not going above 400 feet, and generally aviation not going below 500 feet, in theory, we have a separation zone for safety. Right? In practice, this is often ignored, specifically by the hobbyists. And you know, I'm sure in Spain you have as much bad press as we have in the UK on drones, and you know, drones are flying by aeroplanes supposedly, and you know, in airspace, you know, by airports and things like that. And there are a considerable amount of people that fly drones and for hobby predominantly that are very irresponsible in how they fly and where they fly. And these are the ones that cause the problems for all of us, both as hobbyists and as professional operators. Having said that, you know, there are incidents that get reported by the press that everyone's very quick to blame a drone for, and it makes headlines on all the national papers and the news, and then they find out it was something else that was nothing to do with the drone. And a point in question, I don't know if you remember earlier on, at the tail end of last year, there was a big incident at London Heathrow Airport. Drone hits aeroplane coming in, you know, literally hit the headlines of every single newspaper and news broadcast in the UK. It turned out to be a supermarket shopping bag. But the retraction and the comments about, oh, it's only a shopping bag, made page 53 for 4 lines. You know, no one was interested in that. But by that stage, the damage had been done. So, you know, what we try and do, and I spend a lot of time in my drone world evangelising to people, fly, enjoy flying, do what you want to do, just do it responsibly and safely. So the other thing is you should not go by, over, under, through people or things, people, places or things. So if you've got a drone, and you'll see some videos in a minute, if you've got a really nice drone and you don't go and fly at a music festival, go and fly over the top of people. People do. You know, don't go and fly down the middle of the promenade here, where you've got everybody walking up and down, because ultimately you're breaking the rules. You know, there's some fantastic, I have to say, some phenomenal videos taken around Barcelona, you know, at various basilicas and squares, things like that. And if you actually look at them, most of them are breaking the rules. You know, the problem is the police have got better things on their mind to prosecute than that. And I don't know about Spain, but in the UK now, from the end of last year or beginning of this year, the type of prosecution that happens if you get prosecuted breaking the rules with a drone went from being a civil prosecution to a criminal prosecution. Yeah. Now, for most people, that, you know, a prosecution is a prosecution. One of the big things is, if you get prosecuted now, and this is what I say to people, is the chances are you'll never be able to take your kids to Disney World. That's not Paris, that's the US. Because if anyone's been to the US, what's one of the questions they ask you on the immigration form? Do you have or have you haven't got any criminal records? And if you get prosecuted, certainly in the UK, flying a drone now, irresponsibly or illegally, you end up with a criminal record. Something to think about. Animals and kids, I put them in the same category because they have the same impact. Yeah. You know, when you're flying, you know, when we fly commercially, you're always thinking about animals and how you're impacting them, both as individuals, but also how it's going to impact on what you're doing. It's interesting, some animals have inherently different views of drones than others. That's not that I've been speaking to the animals, but I've seen a lot of what they do. For instance, horses, if you fly above them, you know, relatively speaking, you know, quite high, even though they can hear them, they are not interested at all. If they can see them, generally speaking, they are not interested. If you fly them at the same height as them, they go mad. Yeah, and you know, some horses are worth a lot of money. The last thing you want to do is fly a drone in a field with the horses. They run into a barbed wire fence. You know, there's a lot of money to get the horse repaired. Cows. You know, cows hate them. No matter what you do, cows hate drones. Why? I don't know. I can't, you know, they haven't asked me. I've asked the question many a time. Sheep are another one. Sheep are actually quite funny because, you know, it's like they're being chased, and I'm not saying I've done this, watch the video or two, but when you're flying around the sheep, sort of, it's like they're being chased by sheepdogs, and actually in Australia and New Zealand they actually use drones for herding sheep, so it is used. And as far as kids go, there's a funny side and a bad side. You know, the funny side is that, you know, kids will throw things and try and catch them and do stupid things that will either pull a drone out of the sky, and if it's your investment, it's the last thing you want. I've seen someone throw a towel at a drone, not because they were worried, but because they just thought it was funny, you know, and it damaged them. Having said that, last year, year before last now, an idiot, and I'm being recorded here, so I won't even hide my words. An idiot was flying a smallish drone in the backyard of their house, and actually it wasn't even their house, it was someone else's house. The drone crashed, one of the propellers split, the carbon fibre propellers split, and hit a little kid, a little baby, I think it was about 2-year-old, in the eye, and the kid lost his eye. All right? One of the things I say about all drones, being small or big, they are like a gun. They are safe until you forget they are dangerous. These things kill. No question about it. Especially these sort of size, when you get a chance of a feel, as they say, of these blades, you know, on there, and you'll see, you know, they're not rubbery. These things hurt. Right, the other thing, this is now serious stuff. Because if you're going to go and buy a drone, this is the sort of stuff that will now put you in a cell. All right? And in some cases, they will throw the key away. Controlled airspace. This is where real aeroplanes fly. Yeah? This is where you are not allowed to fly. Sometimes they are from the ground level to a height. Other times they're from a height to a height. If you're going to fly, it's, even as a hobbyist, it's worth making sure that you are not flying around controlled airspace near an airport. That's definitely going to get you put in prison. Yeah. And the last one is national infrastructure. And this is power stations, yeah, to an extent, telephone masts, police masts. I group into that things like police stations, fire stations, military bases, yeah, atomic power stations. Have you got any atomic power stations this way? Yeah.
No.
I mean, I can promise you they will guarantee to put you in prison with that one. So, you know, and these things to steer clear of. It doesn't take much research. You've got to go out flying to find somewhere safe. This is a really emotive issue that's been cropping up a lot in the US recently, but also now in other places, is civil incidents. So, you know, a fire, or you see a big, you know, police raid, or something like that. People are quick to get their drones out and try and get aerial footage of them. The reason being is the money. You know, sell them to the networks, you know, and try and get the film before anybody else does. It's human nature. At the end of the day, it's also hassle. You know, my son flies drones for the police force, and the last thing they want is if they have to be there officially to fly drones, and then someone else is buzzing the place with another one. It's just a recipe for disaster. All right? So avoid flying it. One thing I would say is, if there is a civil incident and you have a drone and you are close by, go and find the incident commander. They usually wear an orange jacket, and no matter which language it's in, on the back of the jacket it says incident commander or scene commander. You know, go and ask them, say, you know, would you like me to take some aerial pictures for you? You know, sometimes they'll say yes, because especially with fires, they're desperate sometimes to know what's happening behind. You may be able to offer a service to them. Forget the money, you know, just do it, but ask them first. No-fly areas. Everyone started to publish no-fly areas, and if you look, I think, there we go. This is the latest no-fly map for Spain. The red areas are put you in jail areas. The yellow areas and blue areas, well, the yellow areas are, you can fly there, but be careful. The blue areas are basically the same. You can see there's plenty of places where you can fly, but there's a lot of places you can't fly. And again, as commercial operators, we can fly in many of these areas with permission, and we know how to apply, talk to the civil aviation or the aviation authorities, and get special approval to fly in those areas. So if you happen to be by one of these areas, and you're flying, and you see a drone flying there, just because they're flying doesn't mean to say you can fly. And you can get permission. You know, I've had permission to fly around one of the atomic energy research centres in the UK. Yeah, you have to jump through a lot of hoops, but it is possible. So, when you get a minute, if you're sad and that way inclined, go onto YouTube and just do a search for drone crashes, crash drones, drone idiots. There's many searches that work, but here's just a few, or a couple that I...
Oh, shit!
So, this happened this week. It's okay.
Yeah, it's gone.
So that happened this week from a hotel room. Yeah, they flew a small Phantom and they didn't put the blades on properly. Didn't screw them up tight. They were at the top, I don't know, if you look, that's about, I don't know, 10, 12 floors high. They've flown it off the balcony and it's crashed. Now, it's quite amusing in a perverse sort of way, because they're being idiots, and you know, seeing someone lose $1,000 worth of kit for being idiots is quite pleasing. Having said that, you know, think about where they are, think about what's below them. You know, that's going to do some, if that doesn't just hit the ground, that's going to do some damage to something or someone. Who's responsible? Because the chances are they've got no insurance. You wouldn't be too happy if your Audi A8 is sat underneath that. Suddenly someone's just put a great big dent in the roof. You know, so here's another one which is just as bad.
Oh no!
He crashes against the
It
computer.
actually went through a window. They were flying it went through an open office window and hit someone's computer and just missed someone.
Oh,
You know, look at the computer, honestly. You know, again, we laugh. You know, but these incidents are actually quite serious if you actually analyse what's happened. And now, this is to the other extreme. There's no audio with this. Now, if you're a cinematographer making a film, this is a phenomenal bit of filming. No question about it. Awesome. And in HD, the quality is superb. They are breaking every single rule in the book. You know? Everyone know where that is, by the way? No? Trafalgar Square? That's the Nelson's Column, very nice. Nice view. London Eye, up there. Big Ben over there, there we go, another bit of footage, lovely. Absolutely stunning, as I say. I mean, you can't fault it as a bit of cinematography. But look at this, Buckingham Palace, how they never got arrested, I do not know. I mean, this is so dangerous, it's unreal. You know, what happens now if, you know, as you saw just now, you know, a blade comes off or something and they hit one of those pods? I mean, this bit's all right. Hopefully they crash now and go in the water. You know, look at this. Tower Bridge. In fact, the irony is that if they got caught, where they belong is just here, on the side, Tower of London. So, yeah, I mean, it goes on. As I say, fantastic bit of filming, but yeah, the guy should be in prison. So, this is to the other extreme. This is actually filmed by a friend of mine, and this bit of video, as you'll see in a minute, took a significant amount of amazing flying to do. When you see it, you'll see what I mean. It was done completely legally. It was done with the Dubai government's approval. In fact, it was actually done for them. And I'll just play it. This is not all the video, I just cut this bit out. It's the most stunning bit. You know, for anyone that flies drones commercially or as a hobbyist for fun, this is some amazing flying. That was filmed by a group called Team Black Sheep, founding the guy that owns the company, is a very good friend of mine that actually flew that. A guy called Raphael Birkin, or Trappy is his nickname. Anyway, so that was a fantastic bit of video. So what's so special about drones? So,
Sorry, can you tell why it was that flight, why it was so special?
because you're flying, right, very good question. Flying a drone is a three-dimensional process, yeah? And if the drone is a long way away, you know, our human eyes, our ability to misjudge things like distances and understanding height and things like that, we lose. Even though he was flying that on goggles, you know, so he was getting what we call a first-person view, so there's a camera on the front of the drone and he's flying it as though he's sat in the drone. You still, because of the way it is, you still don't get three dimensions. It's still very much a two-dimensional image. So actually the ability to fly like that, you know, the chances of when he flew across the top of the mast, you know, all right, he's got an idea of how high the mast is, he's got an idea of how high the drone is because he's got a little readout on the thing, but you know, you've still got the opportunity, and I know I've done it, not like that, where you think you're high enough and you hit the thing that you're trying to fly over.
Doesn't have like certain professional drones have sensors that they will avoid objects like those?
The answer is, when that was done, no. Yeah, and still to this day, the sensors that are available are fairly limited. And this is one of the whole evolutions where the drone industry is going. It's what's known as sense and avoid. So if you look now at the latest machines, the consumer machines that have come out, they've got more sensors on them. The Phantom 4, when it came out, had a sensor on the front, so and you couldn't fly into anything forward. Unfortunately, it was very easy to fly into things backwards and sideways, as many people found out. The latest version of that drone and its sort of bigger sibling, the Inspire 2, have got more sensors on. So you've got side sensors and height sensors, so you don't fly in things. And in fact, one of the things that every drone has, and in fact some countries even mandate it, is a thing called return to home. So if the drone loses signal to you as the operator, or it has some sort of other problem, it will trigger a process that brings it back to home. Now, the problem is that if between where you started and where it's gone, you've now got a building in between you and home, yeah, you're not going to get that machine back. Not in one piece anyway. Yeah, not unless you've arranged for it to fly much higher than that building. The newer systems that are starting to surface have much better return to home or sense and avoid technologies. So it will actually steer its way round, in theory, to come home and not hit any obstructions or obstacles. But when that was filmed, that technology just didn't exist. You know, and I say to all of you, you know, if you get the chance to go and have a play, you know, with someone that will spend a little bit of time with you. I mean, I can teach any of you to fly a drone in 15 minutes. That's not to say you will fly it confidently or competently, but you'll understand the basics of flying it. Once you've got the basics, you'll suddenly realise that actually the minute it goes 20, 25 metres beyond you, trying to judge visually anyway, height, and how far away you are from objects in the distance is actually very difficult. So anyway, going back to this, what's so special? Yeah, the industry, Goldman Sachs earlier this year estimated that our industry is going to be worth, $100 million by 2020. These are big numbers for what, in essence, is a 50-year-old hobby, which is what we are. It's just a hobby that's now got a mission. Every day there is a new idea and a new solution. I don't know if anyone follows this sort of thing in the press and sees what's going on, but one of my, obviously Alex and his company are very solution-based, and they're innovating and coming up with new ideas. However, there's also a massive group of people out there that are just coming up with new ways of using a drone. One of the best ones I love is in Holland, which is the flying defibrillator. Yeah, they've got an app, an emergency app. You'll buy someone that has a heart attack, or you believe it's a heart attack. You phone for an ambulance. If the ambulance can't get there, they can geolocate where you are from your app on the phone, and they fly this drone to you, which lands. It's got a speaker and a microphone, and you can talk to the paramedic at the other end. Well, it's basically a defibrillator. So you can give it zip zip and hopefully save someone. I think that's a brilliant idea. Some friends of mine, a company called Biocarbon in the UK, they're a spin-off from Oxford University. They're looking at reforestation, and they're using a drone, and they've developed some very clever material that you can wrap around seedlings, and then they fly in a certain path, and with basically what is a paintball gun pointing downwards, similar principle, they go and they shoot these pellets down in the ground for planting trees. The advantage is they can cover huge distances and get the exact measurement between them, and it stops people having to, just two examples of the way people are thinking. There's been a lot of discussion recently about companies in Africa flying blood around and chemical and medicines using both multi-rotor drones and fixed-wing drones. And it's evolving all the time. Every week someone comes up with an idea that, the guys here went to a competition in Madrid last week, before last, and one of the winners there has come up with a solution that no one else had thought of, using a drone, and that is for measuring and certifying the approach lighting for runways that historically has been done by expensive airplanes. No one had thought about it. It's a great idea. It's growing faster than the internet did in 1994. We're innovating all the time. Everyone's coming up with new ideas faster than the internet was growing when it first started. Venture funds and investors want to invest in this technology, thankfully. People with money, they can see that the money's not there today, but it will be there. The results will be there in the future. Delivery services, will it or won't it? The obvious one is Amazon. Everyone talks about Amazon Prime Air, but everybody else is looking at it, from Domino's Pizzas to dry cleaning companies to other book companies. Amazon is looking at doing it other ways. Will it happen? I'm fairly certain it will. In fact, I'm 100% certain it will. When will it happen? I don't think anyone knows. There's lots of people, Amazon are trialling in the UK at the moment. There's lots of issues around where do they fly, how do they fly, what happens if there's a problem, where do they land. There's no point in you landing in someone's garden. It's not like a guy, on Deliveroo turning up on his push bike. If someone throws a bottle of water at him, he can defend it. Or a dog starts jumping at him, he can avoid the dog. You can't fly a drone into someone's garden and the kid next door's got a Nerf gun and starts shooting at the drone, or kicks a ball at it. How do you plan for that? So, You know, I think there's so much that needs addressing, and that's even before you think about how does a drone get from A to B safely, and what happens if we've got 1,000 drones flying around in a town, or more, who knows. So my personal view is it's going to happen. There's going to be a lot of money invested in it, in fact shed loads. The question is, when? I don't know. You know, Frank, I don't think anyone knows. So, thanks. You know, that's just a very brief overview. That's how you can get hold of me. But, you know, and if you've got any questions or anything like that, feel free to shout. The one thing I would say is that the word drone doesn't just relate to what we're doing. You know, there's obviously the military drones, but actually a lot of people talk about drones like this machine here that I brought in, just to show you from solving the Rubik's Cube, you know, with Lego. Yeah, Lego again. You know, it's a form of a drone. So, you know, it covers everything. But thank you very much. I hope I haven't spoken A, too fast, and B, understood me, and C, thank you very much.